Well, just tell me where you get them.
Okay, planning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of East Hampton Planning Board's October 8th, 2025 meeting. We have a pretty ambitious agenda tonight, although there are two items that will not be on the agenda tonight that were originally on the agenda. Item number 2 in the work session, item number 3 in the regular meeting agenda, and that is the Elite Towers, the Springs Fire Department. So with that, we'll dive in, and the first thing we're going to do is talk just very briefly about the Wayne Scott Commercial Center and, you know, having received a copy of the supplemental draft environmental impact statement, which we just got and posted online. And Eric, I believe you're going to talk us through that, right?
Sure.
And Eric, I'm sorry, before we begin, is there a waiting room that you can send me to on Zoom?
Jan, I don't think you need to do that.
Okay, even for the meeting?
We're not
Okay.
going to discuss the substance of this at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. But thank you for asking.
Okay, so just an update on the application. We have received the preliminary supplemental draft environmental impact statement. It was posted on the planning board webpage shortly after receipt. The next step is for the planning board as lead agency to conduct a completeness review of the document. The purpose of the completeness review is to determine whether the preliminary SDEIS is adequate with respect to its scope and content for the purposes of commencing public review. The planning department will also be reviewing the document and will submit its findings to the board. Note that there are two possible outcomes to this review. One, the preliminary SDEIS is determined to be inadequate, in which case the planning board will need to identify in writing the deficiencies and provide this information to the project sponsor so they can update the PSDEIS and resubmit. The other is if the preliminary SDEIS is determined to be adequate for public review, the planning board will have to prepare, file, and publish notice of completion of the draft EIS, file copies of the draft EIS in accordance with the requirements of SECRA, and schedule a public hearing and comment period. In sum, the board is encouraged to commence its review of the document for completeness with respect to the adopted scope. The planning department will be conducting its own completeness review, which will be presented to the board. Once the SDEIS is determined to be adequate with respect to the scope, a formal public comment period will be provided, and a public hearing will be scheduled, recommended. Excuse me.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks, Eric. So that we just want to give everyone an idea of where we are. I know many people are interested in that particular application and where we stand with it. So now you know where we are, right? We've received some documentation which we need to review in some detail, as Eric just outlined. All right, so the first other matter other than that is 41 South Elmwood site plan, which is a project in Montauk. And Will, that's yours. Lou, that's yours. And is the applicant here? That's you, Joel, right? Okay, great. Will.
Great. Good evening, board. This is an application seeking site plan approval to construct a new dry retail store with an apartment above on South Elmwood Avenue in Montauk. The parcel is zoned CB, commercial business, 100% clear of natural vegetation and currently vacant. The proposed first floor of the building will be 1,121 square feet in size, and the second floor apartment will be 597.5 square feet, making the gross floor area 1,718.5 square feet. 4 parking spaces are proposed on the northern property line, and a new IAOWTS septic system is proposed. The site is 3,977.5 square feet in size and is surrounded by commercial uses. A parcel to the west of this property is a municipal parking lot with approximately 40 parking spaces. The project is a Type 2 action pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code, and no further action is required. The proposed uses of the property are retail and apartment within a commercial structure. No details about the proposed retail use have been provided other than it being a dry use. Retail is a permitted use in the zoning district, and apartments within commercial structures are allowed with a special permit. The presented application does not appear to fully follow the special permit guidelines for apartments within commercial structures. No private outdoor area for apartment use, no washing machine or dryer space is designated within the apartment. The apartment and retail parking appear to be combined, and no screening or landscaping is proposed to separate the two uses on site. In addition, town code also requires other features. The apartment must be available for moderate income families, and it is standard for legal documents to be filed ensuring affordability in perpetuity, as well as obtaining an annual permit from the Office of Housing and Community Development, fire marshal approval, and each apartment must have at least one on-site parking space. The new building is proposed approximately 7.5 feet from the front property line, where a 10-foot setback is required in this zone, and the building will have no setbacks from the side property lines, where 10 feet is typically required. Because the proposed building will directly abut a business to the east, no setback is required on that property line. Currently, no building is sited on the property to the west of this lot, and the board should discuss whether it wishes the applicant to have a 10-foot setback as typically required, or to waive that setback. As these proposed setbacks are not fully compliant with town code, the applicant should either revise their plans to demonstrate compliance or clarify if they intend to apply to the ZBA for variances. The plans indicate the property will utilize Suffolk County Water Authority 6-inch water main in the alley to the north. The septic flow calculations estimate a daily flow of 251.2 gallons per day, while the proposed IA septic system can tolerate 550 gallons per day. However, no sanitary profile drawings were provided, and the applicant should provide these details to demonstrate compliance. In addition, no details regarding stormwater drainage were provided, and the applicant should include that in their next submission. The applicant proposes 4 parking spaces and a paved parking area in the northern section of the property. Town code requires 1 parking space per 180 square feet of gross floor area of a retail store, and in this case, 6.23 parking spaces would be required. In addition, the town requires 1 parking space for each apartment within a commercial structure, making the required number of spaces 7.23. With fractional numbers, town code requires the number to be rounded up, making the number of required parking spaces 8 for this project. As only 4 parking spaces out of the 8 are proposed, the planning department recommends the applicant rework their plans to include as much of the required parking as possible, while also remaining compliant with permitted coverage. The total lot coverage is proposed at 3,094.8 square feet, where the maximum allowed is 3,182 square feet, making this proposal only 87.2 square feet below the maximum allowed. Additionally, the configuration of the parking spaces will need to be modified, as town code requires a minimum lane width of 24 feet for turnaround behind the spaces. The planning department recommends the applicant use head-in parking to the south of the site in the right-of-way, as is used by neighboring businesses. The planning department also recommends the parking in the north of the site also be head-in. With these changes, it appears there is room for 4 spaces at the rear of the site and 3 spaces in the right-of-way, with 1 being ADA accessible. As the applicant proposes to use the alley to the north of the site for parking access, they should provide plans for improvements to the alley. The submitted plans and survey do not include the dimensions of the parking spaces or the aisle behind the spaces, and the applicant should revise their site plan to include those dimensions and ensure they comply with town code requirements. Because the applicant is proposing less parking spaces on site than are required, the board should consider alternative options. The applicant could alter the proposed site plan to provide all 8 required spaces, though that may result in a decreased building size. Typically, if a site plan can theoretically include all required parking on site, but the board would prefer the applicant include some off-site parking in the right-of-way, the planning department would recommend the applicant apply for variances. The alley to the north of the site is partially obstructed and is currently used for parking and waste storage, so parking at the rear of the subject property would not be out of character. However, the applicant will need to demonstrate adequate access will be provided there. The board may choose to waive the parking requirement for the apartment when there is adequate parking on site or nearby, and the board should discuss this, though it may wish to wait until a revised parking layout is submitted. The board should discuss whether it wishes to waive the requirement of the apartment parking space and if the applicant should apply to the ZBA for variances. The applicant should revise their site plan to include the dimensions of parking spaces and drive aisle, consider revising their plan to fit as many required spaces as possible, and reorient the parking to be head-in. To the east of the site, multiple businesses have pedestrian sidewalks outside of their property and within the right-of-way. Extending the existing sidewalk will permit pedestrian access to the town parking lot to the west and extend the near-complete sidewalk access of the entire block. The applicant should amend their plans and submit details regarding the sidewalk. No lighting or landscape plans were provided, and the applicant should include those in their next submission. No dumpster or waste receptacles are shown in the plans, and if no dumpster is proposed on site, the applicant should clarify the proposed method of waste disposal. If a dumpster is proposed, the applicant should revise their plans to include the proposed location. The town consulting engineer has reviewed the submitted plans and requested several alterations be made. Parking calculations should be provided. A comprehensive grading and drainage plan should be provided for the site, alley, and road. A soil boring with groundwater measurement should be provided. Detailed specifications for curbing, drainage, pavement, walkways, and fencing should be provided. Approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services will be required, and a highway work permit will be required from the superintendent of highways. Comments from the town fire marshal indicate that as only 4 parking spaces are proposed, no ADA parking spaces are required. However, if the applicant revises their site plan to include additional spaces, further fire marshal review will be required. The board should discuss whether it supports the applicant applying to the zoning board for parking variances, and should the proposed work be approved by the planning board, ARB approval will also be required. Several elements required for site plans were not provided with the submission and should be submitted in the next submission. These include dimensions between proposed structures and property lines, a parking circulation pattern, and comprehensive lighting and landscape plans. In conclusion, the board should discuss if the application complies with code regulations for apartments within commercial structures, if the building plan should be changed to eliminate the need for setback variances, if the parking spaces on site should be head-in, and if it supports the applicant applying to the zoning board for parking variances. The applicant should revise their site plan to include dimensions between the building and property lines, parking space and aisle dimensions, building finished floor elevations, parking calculations, and parking area circulation plan. Additionally, the applicant should clarify if they intend to apply to the ZBA for variances, submit a sanitary profile and stormwater drainage details, submit lighting and landscape plans, and rework their site plan to include as many of the required parking spaces as possible.
Okay, thank you, Will. Mr. Halsey, would you like to be heard?
Sure. I guess I'll just kind of go down bullet point by
For the record, Joel.
Oh, sorry.
Name, address.
Sorry, Joel Halsey, representing the Lighthouse Land Planning, 85 The Plaza in Montauk, New York. Representing the property owner for the subject property. So I'll start regarding the retail use that hasn't been decided. We're way too far in the beginning of phases of trying to get an approval before we can decide what we're going to put inside there. Whether there's sufficient outdoor space or is appropriate consideration should be given to incorporating outdoor common areas for the private outdoor space for the apartments. As we know, just a small lot. It's 3,977 square feet, so it's not really a sufficient outdoor space. The property is 2 blocks from the ocean and in close proximity to other areas of open space throughout Montauk. Installation of the washing machines. This will be shown in the next set of plans that get submitted to the planning board. But however, there is a laundromat two doors down from this. But we will put a washer and dryer in there. Residential parking should be located separately from commercially designated parking spaces when practicable. This is not really practicable on this site. Again, it's a small lot. It's 3,977 square feet. Screening to separate the residential use from the commercial use. The commercial use is on the bottom floor, the residential use is on the top floor. There's really not much we can screen in that situation. There is a separate entrance shown for the apartment on the plan. Well, actually, you access the apartment through the exterior stairs up to the second floor apartment. So there is a separate entrance. Each apartment should have at least one parking space. Love to see you guys tell us we didn't need that parking space for the apartment. There's a lot of parking in this area. And we do show 4 spots. I'll touch on parking in a little bit. The building is proposed 7.5 feet from the property line. That was an error on my part. I did not. The building is 7.5 feet from the front yard property line. We will have it shifted back 2.5 feet to meet the 10-foot setback on the next submission. The building is proposed to have no setbacks from the property lines where 10 feet is required. We're not required a setback from the eastern property line because there is a store next to there on the eastern side. In the future, there could be a store on the western side. I had discussed this prior to submitting an application with the planning department, and they were kind of under the same agreement with me that eventually a store could be there. And so no setback should be appropriate in that situation. Right now, there are trailers on that site, not that they're legal or anything, I don't know. So it would abut the trailers, which would actually have to move because they're slightly on the subject property. We will revise the site plan to include the setbacks. We will revise the sanitary plan to show the profile. David Rhodes, who is working on the parking plan as well as the sanitary plan. After tonight's meeting, we will work on the parking design once I determine how the board would like to see it. We did not show head-in parking to the south side of the building because that is in the town right of way. If the board would like to see the head-in parking and say go for ZBA variances, we'll go for ZBA variances. We'd love to do that. Actually, we wouldn't love to do that, but we will do that. We will try to orient the parking, so it is pull-in parking on the north side of the building as well. The alley to the rear, applicants should provide plans for improvements to the alley. The alley to the rear is already improved, so I don't know what plans we would necessarily need to be submitting to improve that alley. We will, again, once after tonight's meeting, we'll redesign the parking. That will be submitted and hopefully address all the concerns here. Parking, so hopefully, technically we need 8 spots. Hopefully we can knock that down to 7 without the apartment, not require the apartment. And if that's the case, we could probably, we might even be able to squeeze 4 in the front and 4 in the rear and actually show the 8 spots. We would need to show a handicap spot. I believe it's not that we don't need a handicap spot if we only have 4 spots. I believe we just don't need to label a handicap spot if we have 4. We still need to make it handicap accessible. It just doesn't need to be labeled. I might have misunderstood the fire marshal in that situation, but I believe we still need it. It needs to be accessible, just it doesn't need to be labeled as a handicap spot. I'm not quite sure the reasoning behind that, but if we have to show more than 4 spots, then we show a handicap spot anyway, so I think it's good to have it there anyway. 8 parking spaces, put away the parking requirement that's been discussed. And we will submit plans that show the sidewalk extending from the east across the front of our lot as well. Lighting plan that will be submitted up for the next go around. Landscaping plan, there's not much to landscape, but we will landscape whatever we can. There is a small patch of lawn, which is going to extend another 2.5 feet in the front, so that's probably going to be the area of landscaping. And we will show a small dumpster on the site somewhere, once we can find out where we can squeeze that.
Okay.
I believe that's everything.
Okay, off to a start there. Lou, do you want to lead our discussion?
Yeah, in support of this application, I think I would encourage it, just a few modifications that I would suggest. I think some of them have already been touched upon by Joel. The parking, I think, would be better if we did have those 3 or maybe 4 in the right of way, which would give us maybe 7, maybe 8 parking spaces, like you said. So I think that's a modification that's necessary. The setbacks, I agree with you that I think on three sides, you're definitely meet the setback requirements. It's the western side that would be an issue. I didn't realize that that was a lot that could be built. If that's the case, and another commercial establishment would be built there, I think, my opinion, we'd have to find out if it's true that you wouldn't need any setback there as well. So you're good with the setbacks. The reason I like this for this project is because of 2 benefits I think it will provide. One is the affordable housing unit that you're creating. So I think, any affordable housing unit that we can get will be welcome. The other one is the alleyway. That alleyway is a mess. And by improvement, I think, it needs to be paved. There's a giant pothole in it right now. It's totally disorganized. I don't know how we go about doing that, but if this project leads to improving that alleyway, I think that in itself is a major accomplishment. So I would push for that. I guess the town owns that alleyway.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will is shaking his head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we had another application last year where there was an alleyway that was improved by the applicant that was in front of us. They repaved it, and turned it into it created a problem, but eventually it worked out very well. So if we could do something like that here, I think that would go a long way to, my encouraging this application. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. So you're just on the setback issue, you're good with, a 0 clearance on the west.
I didn't realize there was another establishment that could be built, another commercial establishment. If so, I think it's true that they wouldn't need that.
Okay, I'd like to pull the board on this application and others.
I just have a question or a clarification. So one of the parking spaces will be for the affordable housing?
You could waive that requirement if you wish. If we can somehow get 8 parking spaces, then, we could, if you encourage us to go for the parking variances, if we can only show 7 spots, actually 4 spots on the site, and we need 4 more spots to get to the 8. So we need a variant of 4-spot parking variance.
I'm just trying to think where the person in the affordable housing would park.
In the back.
In the back.
In the back, okay.
They have staircases in the back. Right?
Yeah, so the entrance is in the back, yeah. So if you encourage us to go for the parking variance, we could probably squeeze 4 spots in the front, pull in, and we do show 4 spots in the back. It might need to be reorientated to try to make sure it works, and one of those could be a designated apartment parking space. And so we would show that. I'll probably be able to discuss that a little bit more further in the next meeting, just to see what we can show. So if we can show 4 spots in the back and 4 spots in the front, we got our 8. Well, either way, we're going to need a parking variance of 4. But if we can show 8 spots, then I guess either way we can still show a designated spot in the back as the apartment, unless you want to waive it.
And you did say that the 4 spots in the back would be reoriented from what you submitted here, so that they would head in parking facing the back of the building. Yeah, I think that's a better plan.
That's the only way it works, so they don't have
Yeah.
the 24 feet.
Agreed. What is the width of the lot the same on the alley and on Elmwood, and what is that?
Yeah, I believe so.
It is 40 feet.
Yeah.
The alley is 20 feet wide and the lot is 40 feet wide.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So we'd like to hear from everybody on sort of the key issues here, which really are the parking and the setbacks. So Reed will start with you.
Yeah, no, so when I read through this, I thought that this one application was going to tie us up for a long time tonight because there seemed to be a lot of issues. But it seems to me that the board, the town, and the applicant all seem to be on the same sheet of music here. And I think we've worked through some of these issues, and I think Luke gave a very good overview. So I agree with everything he said. So.
Okay, good. So we're good on setbacks. We're good.
Yeah, and I think the 8 spots is important. I know this time of year, you know, you can find a parking spot out there, but in the summertime, it gets a little tighter. So having more parking is better than fewer.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think the head-in parking off of South Elmwood is definitely a must, and also the head-in parking off the alley, I think is going to help your case a lot better. You don't have enough width to do the parking the way you have it now. The side yard setbacks, I'm fine with to go to no setbacks. Pushing the building back to the 10 feet, I think is fine. And yeah, other than that, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, good.
Are the sidewalks of the building next to it going to match the sidewalk? I assume you're.
Yeah, I believe they'd still be I'm pretty sure the sidewalks are the Montauk red or pink.
Okay.
So I believe they will.
Well,
They're matching.
color is one thing. I just want to be the same path because there've been other spots in Montauk where the sidewalks don't match up.
And now we were kind of going back and forth with the design on the sidewalk a little bit and moving the building back. We may be able, oh no, I don't think it really, I'm trying to remember why we had to kind of just a slight curve in the sidewalk. So I can't, I'll try to get it as,
Okay, all right.
so I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
So there was, and I don't believe that's kind of like just a napkin design we were working on. I don't have that, but I will try to get it as straight as we can get it.
That's great. I concur with Bruce and Reed, and Joel has answered all my concerns.
All right, good. Ava.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement as well. I'm in favor of this application, as Lou said, you know, with the affordable housing especially. I would like to see the parking updated to kind of dovetail off what Reed said. This time of year, it is a bit easier to park, but that is a high traffic area with the beer distributor.
I wasn't going to say that, so we had to bring that up.
Sorry. Some of my favorite spots are bird on a roof, but yeah, no, it'd be great to see that updated plan and the setbacks. I did not realize that the lot adjacent was buildable, so
Yeah.
I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, so I mean, I basically agree with what everyone else has said, you know, and I think, you know, the idea of this notion of a sort of a contiguous and continuous line of retail stores, you know, has a really nice effect, right? That sort of downtownish kind of feeling. And it would look odd, I think, if you had odd setbacks that no one else had along that strip, you know, it's out of context. I do question a little bit, I'm just wondering about this, because you'll be 10 feet behind the buildings next to
I
you.
believe we might be in line with the building.
I think he's going to be on
Yeah, I
that.
think
Well,
that's
you're going to be in line, so
Yeah.
setback is 10.
okay. So there's building 10 feet of grass, and then you align with the existing
I believe
sidewalk.
so, yes.
All right, well, we'll explore
Well,
that
yeah, we'll
further.
double check.
I'm
I
not-
mean, maybe we throw that into the variance too.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that's true. But I'm good on the setback thing, obviously, as I just said, and the parking. You know, I mean, listen, you're 50 feet away from a 40-car parking lot, right? Even though, you know, we know in the summer it gets crowded, but still, nonetheless, I think there's maybe some
It's
room.
retail, it's not like a restaurant or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
gonna be-
Yeah. And the affordable housing aspect of this too is obviously a real plus. We seem to do this one unit at a time, you know, in this town, which is great. We're making our way there. So, all right, given that, we'll go through the questions, which are, should the applicant amend the application in order to comply with special permit guidelines? And actually, I think you'll need some help, Will, on what you're referring to exactly here with the special permit guidelines for apartments within commercial structures and update their plans to demonstrate compliance. Which
It's the,
Now, I know,
Oh, the
if I
laundry.
could chime in, I know that's in relation to the guidelines that are in the specific special permit standards. Those are the ones that relate to an open space area for the apartment, separate entrance. I think the applicant addressed a lot of those issues for the
Okay.
board, although I
Yeah,
can't speak for the board. as to
Figured it
whether
might be
it was
those. I
adequate.
wasn't sure if it was a more expansive list, so,
I think
okay.
that's on page 4, Ed, up at the
Okay,
top.
all right.
and those are just guidelines.
Yeah.
Right, like the screening of, yeah. So,
Right,
has
so I
been
guess,
addressed already, so
yeah, so what
Like,
is the
no.
answer? Does it
Or
need
it's
to be
been
amended? It
discussed.
has been discussed and amended, I think, is the
Yeah.
answer to this. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Should
I
the
agree
applicant,
too. Don't forget about me.
not recused. Yeah, there we go. Should the applicant revise their plans to comply with setback requirements or clarify whether they plan to apply for setback variances? I think we talked about that, and I think we all agree that we're fine with what's been presented.
Yes.
Yep, yes, yep, okay, just chime in, Jen. Should the applicant revise their plans to include setbacks between the property lines and the proposed building?
Yeah, we said no.
No. No.
Also, the setback from the front yard property line to the building. So
Yeah,
you see
I'm
the
sort of assuming that's what this
Yeah,
referred
I
to,
believe
so,
so, yes.
yeah. So I guess the answer to that is no, you're
Well,
gonna keep.
front yard, yes, side yards, no.
Right, we're not asking for revision to the plan to include setbacks between the front property line and the proposed building. I think that's what let's think of the question that way.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so do we agree with that as revised? Because I think we addressed the other issue already with the second question.
These side property lines, not front, right? Is that the way we're thinking about this?
No,
The front, they've already agreed to.
Fronts, they're gonna push it back.
We were, just to clarify from the memo, we were kind of more asking that the setbacks be illustrated on the plan. In other words, illustrating, 10 feet from the side yard. And I think as far as the, I think we understand the board's consensus, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, and based on what the applicant said, the applicant will move the building back to meet the 10-foot setback from the front property line, but the board doesn't feel that there needs to be any setback from the side yards. They're comfortable with the building being designed to abut property lines on those sides. And I will say, this is something we'll look into. The applicant brought this up too. We're confident that the code, its requirement is that, it's a 10-foot side yard setback. There's a note in the dimensional table that says if it's abutting a building on either side, that it doesn't need to meet that setback. We're not 100% sure whether that means that the eastern property line can have no setback, but the western property line where there is no building, if that needs to have the setback. The wording of the code suggests if it's abutting a building on either side, that it doesn't need to meet the 10-foot setback. So we think the board may be within its authority to allow the building up to the property lines on both sides. We'll talk to the town attorney, we'll talk to the applicant, we'll figure that out for the revisions.
lean
All right.
towards that.
So, yeah, all right. So I think we need to go back to 2 and revise the question, right? So it's really, should the applicant revise their plans to comply with setback requirements based on the outcome of discussions with the planning department relative to whether or not you meet the requirements for 0 setback on the west? I'll figure out some slightly better wording than that. But everyone knows what I'm trying to say, I
That wasn't
believe.
bad.
Yes.
So yeah, so let's just leave it at that for question 2. Does that mean question 3 can go away? All right, so let's do 2 separate questions. So the question I just asked, about revising or not the setbacks based on the outcome of this discussion with the planning department, right? There will be no need to do that if the planning, right? So it's pending that discussion. Okay.
There you go.
So is that a yes or a no? Right?
No,
It's a pending.
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
We always agree to pending.
All right, so it is conditional, it is provisional, so that isn't a yes or a no, right, depending on the outcome. Depending on the outcome is the answer. Should the applicant revise their plans to include setbacks between, and so we'll, just as a separate question, to include setbacks between the front of the building and the property line? Right? Yes. You're going to push it back to 10 feet, right? Okay.
Yes.
Good, thanks, Jen. Should the applicant submit a sanitary profile and details regarding stormwater drainage?
Yes.
Should the applicant reorient the on-site parking to comply with planning department recommendations, which are head in, front, and back?
Yes.
Yes.
Should the applicant provide plans for improvements of the alley to the north?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, we'd like you to.
Yes, sounds
Yeah,
like it needs it.
that's going to be a quick, but further detail about that will come up in further discussion with the planning department.
Of course, with the town too, because it's town property.
It's town property, and it is a mess, as Louis pointed out. It really is, it's a mess. And if somebody has to use that as their main access to an apartment.
It's not just the area behind the building you're proposing, it's the entire alleyway that should be.
It's a long alley.
It's not that long.
Yeah, there's a curve in the end of
Yeah,
it.
there's that curve, and it goes past 3 or 4 buildings.
Yeah. All right, so I think what we're saying here is improvements are required, yes, and you can participate in some way in that, and we'll discuss what that is as time goes on. Okay.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to just fix up the alleyway behind the building. And while we're at it, we should endeavor to fix up that entire alleyway.
So that may require the town's involvement in that process. So I think, really the intention of the question is, can we have those discussions?
Yeah, we'll discuss.
Yeah. Should the applicant submit revised plans, including dimensions of the parking spaces and aisles behind the parking spaces? You're going to do that, yes? Yes, everybody?
Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Does the board agree off-site parking in the right-of-way of South Elmwood Street would be appropriate?
Yes.
Yes.
But not for the resident of the affordable housing, right?
No, his is in the back.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Okay,
I don't think we need to make that distinction quite yet.
that's fine.
Does the board support the applicant applying for parking variances to permit off-site parking in the right-of-way?
Yes.
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 Should the applicant extend existing sidewalk access across the front, the south side of their site, and submit plans for the sidewalk?
Yes.
You said
Yes.
yes, you would. Okay, good. Should the applicant submit a comprehensive lighting plan?
Yes. Yes.
Should the applicant submit a landscaping plan?
Yes.
Not much
Best I can do.
landscape,
It's not going to be
yeah. There's more. Should the applicant clarify if a dumpster is proposed, and if not, what method of waste disposal is proposed? If a dumpster is proposed on site, should the applicant revise their plans to include the proposed location of the dumpster? You said you would provide one and show us
Yes. Yeah.
how it's going to be accommodated. So it's a yes. Thanks, Jen. Should the applicant provide the listed missing elements of a site plan, which are required as necessary elements?
Yes.
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 All right.
Have a
Joel,
great evening,
like I
everyone.
said,
Thank you.
good start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we've got McDonald Griffin sub waiver. That is Jen, that's you, and Chris for the planning department. And is the applicant here for McDonald Griffin? Shannon. Okay. Good. So Chris.
There we go. Thank you. So this is the fourth review of the McDonald Griffin subdivision waiver application at 981 Springs Fireplace Road. I'm just going to pull up the map here. Site Zone B residence, 1.25 acres and adjacent to areas of environmental consideration. Parcels partially cleared with 13,151 square feet of cleared area, which conforms with the town code. And the proposals to divide the property into two parcels. Parcel 1 is proposed as 28,106 square feet with frontage on Springs Fireplace Road, and parcel 2 is proposed as 20,002 square feet. Site's currently improved with a 2-story single-family residence, which is reflected on the most recent CO from 2023. There's also a shed existing near the proposed common driveway, which would be removed as a condition of approval, which the board agreed to during the last review. Next, I'm just going to go over the comments from the previous review. The board commented that council will determine if the proposed common driveway can be approved without an emergency turnaround area. Council determined that it was required. The applicant indicated that turnaround area accordingly, and that issue's been resolved. Next was to ensure that the catch basin design for the common driveway was appropriate for drainage standards. Common driveway plan was updated. The town consulting engineer reviewed it and found it to be acceptable. The next comments I'm just going to group together. The board commented that the proposed conservation easement and access easement areas should be indicated. The easements should be subtracted from the lot areas, and the flag strip should be subtracted from the lot area to parcel 2. All these adjustments were made by the applicant, and the planning department is satisfied with the revisions. For SECRA, the board agreed to conduct a coordinated review, for which a coordination letter was sent to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services on October 3rd. Once the county provides a response letter of 30 days passes, the board can move forward with its review. The planning department will prepare an environmental assessment form parts 2 and 3, and negative declaration will likely be recommended. The planning department notes that the board may move forward with considering the application complete and ready for public hearing at this time. In addition to the comments on drainage, the town consulting engineer just mentioned that there are some proposed structures. You can see the building on parcel 2 that should be removed on the final plat, as well as building envelopes. The planning department recommends that this could be made a condition of approval, and the board should determine if this agrees. Otherwise, the only other approval that would be required is from the county for the final sub-waiver map. And in conclusion, the application appears complete and ready to be scheduled for public hearing. The board should discuss whether those proposed structures could be removed as a condition of approval. And if no additional information is needed, the board should determine whether the application is complete and ready to schedule for a public hearing. That's
Okay,
all for now.
thank you very much, Chris. The applicant, yes.
Good evening, Shannon McCaffrey, Dewey's Planning. We agree with everything that Chris just went over, but we do request that the construction of the common driveway and turnaround be a condition of a CO on lot 2 only, and not that lot 1 can maintain their access as is for now, just so that we don't have to clear unnecessary trees until a house is actually built back there. And we're okay with the condition of signing of the mapping, the removal of the building envelopes and proposed dwelling. And then we also just request to be scheduled for a public hearing.
Okay. Can we do that, planning department, regarding the turnaround? You know, if you're not going to build on the back lot initially.
Correct.
Do we have a?
I think we have to look into it.
We've had a lot of problems with people not completing subdivision improvements. We can do it as a condition of final. So I guess, the short answer is yes.
When you say condition of final, do you mean final approval by us as opposed to getting the CO for that lot, which is what I think Shannon was asking about?
It's something, it's kind of unique to the subdivision, but it's tricky of when you time the installation of the turnaround. Because what can happen is we do have a lot of even minor subdivisions that have sat around for 10, 20 years. The owner, if you condition it that they only have to build the turnaround when you go for a CO on the back lot, then there could be a subsequent change of ownership, this owner sells and leaves, the subdivision isn't completed, nobody is looking to build a home on the back lot, then they come in looking to build it, and it can be tricky because then it's tough to figure out who's responsible for building the improvements. But the plus side of deferring the construction of the turnaround is that you don't clear areas of woodland. You know, you're not making them do that in investment and have improved surfaces that are essentially sitting around. But the negative of it is oftentimes significant. So long story short, what I would recommend is that the turnaround should be completed before the chair signs the map and there's any transfer of ownership of any of the lots.
Say that again, before the
chair signs the map.
I'm not sure I understand. So basically I think that's a no to Shannon's question, right? Is that a recommendation? Okay.
I mean, the covenant for the common driveway is going to be filed at the time of recording of the map. So any transfer, any title of new buyers will be aware of the requirement of this construction of the common driveway. So, or it'll be the owners today that know this requirement. And so I think we're kind of covered over that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, you're good.
Is there any time horizon for when the owners plan to build back there?
And so, I mean, it could be to the fact that they want to build a pool on lot 1 and keep lot 2 still wooded for many years. And so we would just have a common driveway that's not being utilized at all.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it actually, you know, now that I'm thinking about it and looking at the map, it might make the most sense in this case. And given that the back lot may not be developed, it may make the most sense to condition that it has to be completed and signed off on before the issuance of a CO, which is common in subdivisions and is what the applicant is asking for.
CO for lot 2.
That might make the most sense here. I'm trying to sort of correct this situation in some other subdivisions where things weren't built and now people are looking for COs and trying to figure out whose responsibility it is. But thinking about it, the issues that affect those probably don't affect this subwaiver. So I'm sorry to go roundabout and waste the board's time, but I agree with the applicant. I think if you did eventually make completion of the common driveway, including the turnaround, a condition of before a CO is issued on either lot, that should be sufficient.
Okay.
Great.
So let's see how the board feels about it. Jen?
Yeah, thank you. That was a little twist and turn there, but I agree. I think it does make sense to wait for the CO on lot 2. And I think the applicant has, really answered every question and submitted to submitted changes to every request we had. The structures that are on there that are being removed, that would be a condition of approval. But barring that, I think it is ready to be scheduled for a public hearing.
Okay. All right. Around the table, let's see how everyone feels about this new request and this new possible solution to the turnaround. How do we all feel about that? Do we want to make this a condition of the CO for lot 2 or require it now? Reed.
I think it makes some sense. I'm just curious, who shoulders the cost of the common driveway if the ownership changes? Does that make sense?
A lot of times it all depends on how the covenant's going to be written, but a lot of common driveways, it's 50% shared across the board evenly between lot owners. So we can put that into the covenant language.
Okay.
You're okay with waiting?
Yeah, I'm okay with waiting, yeah.
I'm good with waiting.
Okay. Well, I agree with the last thing Eric said. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with waiting, and as long as it's clearly, written out in the covenant, then that follows the line of sale, so if that was to occur.
Yeah. All right, well, that makes sense to me too. I have to admit, my initial take on this was really Eric's, which is, it's sometimes very difficult to get things to happen later, right? And we often are in a situation where we have to sort of figure out how to get something done that should have been done. But I do really think it would be a shame to take down trees and do all that stuff and have it sitting there for, maybe a decade or two. So I kind of agree on that. So we'll add this to the questions. So the first is, I think we're in good shape. Does the planning board agree that the proposed structures and building envelopes can be removed from the final map as a condition of approval? We didn't really talk about that.
Yes, I agree with that. I think it was mentioned.
Yeah, is there any question? I'm unclear about that question. I'm sorry.
So basically those proposed buildings and septic systems, those are just for health department purposes of their review and would have to be removed to make the map clean to be recorded anyway. So that's not an issue.
So they're literally there as proposed structures. Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, I will clarify though, that's an error talking about the building envelopes. The building envelopes shouldn't be removed from the map.
Building envelope should stay.
Okay. All right, so we agree that the proposed structures should, not just can be, should be removed from the final map as a condition of approval.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Everybody good? Jen? Okay.
Yes.
So I guess really an intermediary question before we get to the next one is, do we agree that we can condition the construction of the turnaround as a condition of approval for the CO of Lot 2?
Yes.
I think we're all agreeing.
Yeah.
Yes. Jen, yeah, okay. Does the planning board then find the application complete?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, everybody's yes, okay. Does the planning board agree the application is ready to be scheduled for a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, good,
Thank
thanks,
you so much.
Shannon.
Have a great evening.
Thanks, Shannon.
Did you get all that, Katie? Good. We're good on that last the question. Okay. All right. So our next up is the Schuster sub-waiver. That's Chris. That's you, Bruce.
Yep.
And the applicant and his legal counsel are both here. Rick Whalen and Mr. Schuster, I presume. Yeah. Okay, Chris.
Thank you. So yeah, this is the Schuster subdivision waiver application, 20 Bayview Avenue in East Hampton. So third review, it was last reviewed on May 21st of this year. The site shown here is Zone B residence. It's within several areas of environmental consideration, including Suffolk County Pine Barrens, Groundwater Management Zone 5, Town Water Protection District, and South Fork Special Groundwater Protection District. It's also partially cleared of natural vegetation. The existing parcel was originally comprised of 3 individual parcels created as part of the Olympics Heights subdivision filed in 1912. These parcels were subsequently abandoned and consolidated under common ownership in September 2023 as required by its designation within an old filed map area and pursuant to the town code. The former lot lines are shown on the proposed subdivision map along with the existing lot lines. So background on the application, it's a sub-waiver application to divide the existing lot into 2 parcels. Parcel 1, which is 20,159 square feet, and parcel 2, which is 18,509 square feet. The subject property is 240 feet of frontage along Bayview Avenue. And during the previous 2 reviews, the majority of the board was not supportive of the application since the proposal would create a non-conforming parcel, which could establish a precedent for supporting similar proposals. The board also agreed that the proposal would have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood and or would undermine the intentions of zoning and old filed map study. So going on to the issues, I'll go over the comments from the last review. The board commented that a scenic easement area for at least 10% of lot depth would be required. Applicant responded by providing a 16-foot wide easement to the map and submitted a letter that neither lot would require revegetation. Some portions of the property are deeper, with a total depth of about 175 feet. The other toward the east gets narrower to about 147 feet. The 16-foot width appears adequate since it's about average for the total width of the parcel, and the planning board should determine if it agrees. The proposed scenic easement includes areas which are currently cleared. The planning department recommends that the board requires a revegetation plan to enhance the natural buffer. The board typically requires revegetation plans for partially cleared scenic easements, and the board should determine if it agrees in this instance. And then comment 2 was just for the applicant to indicate clearing and just to show that it was conforming with the town code. The existing boundaries of the existing clearing were shown, and it does comply with the town code. And we just note that revegetation may be required within the scenic easement should the board choose. Pursuant to SECRA, as mentioned in the past reviews, it's an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code. It would be recommended that the planning board request lead agency, and the applicant should prepare an environmental assessment form Part 1 at this time. Regarding existing conditions, the submitted map indicates existing accessory structures which are no longer on the subject property according to aerial imagery from March of this year. Just quickly show you can see a lot of the deck and garden whatnot are no longer on the site. I'm gonna jump back to the subdivision map. But basically the map should just be revised to indicate what is actually there at this time, as well as you can see some lot lines from the former urban renewal parcels, as well as some lot lines which we had trouble identifying. These should be removed, and the map should only indicate the existing one single lot and then the 2 proposed lots, just to make it more clear. Engineer report details that there may be areas of slopes with 20% or greater are shown with these dashed marks here. And the town consulting engineer just noted that there might be additional areas on site with those slopes. However, the applicant should confirm that and would need to consider topography and potential impacts of stormwater runoff when developing. As mentioned in the previous reviews, building envelopes should be provided which avoid these areas of steep slopes. And the engineer also noted that the applicant would be required to obtain sewage credits associated with the lack of density from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, given that parcel 2 is less than 20,000 square feet. For the other approvals of this project, the Zoning Board of Appeals would need to grant a lot area variance for the non-conforming lot size of parcel 2, given that the planning board did not support the lot size. Suffolk County Department of Health Service would need to approve the final sub-waiver map and sewage credits for parcel 2, and the town board would need to approve an urban renewal map modification, given that the old filed study called for this lot to just be one buildable lot. One addition from our written report is the Suffolk County Planning Commission review would be required, given that the property is within the Pine Barrens, Suffolk County. The title of the map should be revised to show that it's a map of the Schoenster Minor subdivision. And in conclusion, it remains incomplete pending the resolution of the issues mentioned. The board should discuss whether the proposed width of the scenic easement is acceptable and whether a revegetation plan will be required. Applicant should confirm that all areas of slopes of 20% or greater are indicated accordingly. And given that the majority of the board was not in favor of the proposed lot size for parcel 2, an area variance would be required.
Okay. All right, thank you. Does the applicant wish to be heard?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard Whalen from Whalen Filer, PLLC. I've just been engaged to represent Mr. Schoenster, James Schoenster. James is here. I want to confirm I'm representing him.
How you doing, Rose? I'm hiring Rick to do the representation for me.
Okay.
Okay.
So noted.
No, so I'm here for you if you need any questions.
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm sorry.
So I'm new to the matter, but I have obviously looked at most of the files so far. So first of all, apparently the board had a discussion earlier this year, and there was I believe it was a 4-3 vote that said that you didn't recommend in favor of the subdivision because, among other reasons, it would have an adverse presidential effect. That's not the case. The application, as is true of most lot area variances, is sui generis. It's one of a kind. The prior agent for the applicant submitted to you a narrative and an analysis of the impact on neighboring lots in Bayview Avenue. I took a little bit of a larger look. The map of Olympic Heights was filed in 4 sections in 1912 and 1913. It comprised around 95 acres of land. I looked at what is residentially zoned and privately owned today. I used the Suffolk County GIS. So there are some commercial portions of Olympic Heights on Old Fireplace Road. On the east side of the map, there's a small neighborhood business zone on the west side on 3 Mill Harbor Road. I excluded those areas because they're not residentially zoned. The town owns a parcel contiguous property of about 2.1 acres in the middle of the map, so that's not developable. I excluded that. What you're left with is about 87 acres of residentially zoned land in Olympic Heights. Actually less than that because I didn't go to the trouble of excluding the roads. But within that residentially zoned block, privately owned land is about 87 acres. There are, under the current urban renewal map, about 171 lots. James's property comprises about 96.7% of the required lot area that he would need to have two 20,000 square foot lots. So he's very, very close. It's basically a de minimis variance, and he would be adding 1 lot to 171 that currently exist in Olympic Heights. That's all by way of background, because we may revisit that question again. As you already know, it's not really your call anyway. It's the Zoning Board of Appeals. So let me address what's in the memo. In terms of things that you would be requiring. So a scenic easement for at least 10% of the depth of the parcel. The map now shows a 16-foot deep scenic easement. I will note that the requirement for the scenic easement applies to subdivisions fronting on a public road. I'm not at all sure that Bayview Avenue is a public road. It's the urban renewal street. I would guess that it probably has not been dedicated to the highway system, but you know what? It doesn't matter because we're going to offer you that scenic easement anyway. So I just want to point that it really technically applies only if you're on a public road. Clearing appears to not be an issue. The property is not overcleared. Neither of the proposed lots would be overcleared if they were created. I do understand you will need an environmental assessment form Part 1, which I plan to submit. In terms of conditions on the map, it is true that the remaining structures have been removed, so the map should be updated to reflect what is or is not on the lot today. 20% slopes. I've read the memo, obviously, and the engineer's memo. So I will talk to the engineer and we will determine whether or not he's accurately depicting the 20% slopes. And if he's not, we have to fix that. And then we'll show a building that will, presumably it'll only be on parcel 2, because I don't think we have any I assume that we don't have any 20% slopes on parcel 1. So we'll deal with that and see that any 20% slopes are properly shown and that a building envelope will not disturb them. The last thing though is the big thing, all right? Whether I come back to you depends on what I determine is the path forward with the health department. The property is in groundwater management zone 5. There were 3 tax map parcels on this property going back to the 1981 tax map, and the health department usually defers back to them. The reason that the parcels were combined, and it's still a little bit of a mystery to me, I wasn't representing James on this, of course, but he did do road abandonments in accordance with the urban renewal map. And once the road abandonments were filed, the County Real Property Tax Service Agency assigned a new tax parcel for the entire property. So I have to figure out what how that affects the health department process. If there's no way forward with the health department, then we'll probably not have any reason to come back to you or go to the zoning board. So that's really my first order of business, is to go talk to the engineer, who I've not yet talked to, see what the situation is, that there is a current application to the health department, find out where that stands, and see if there's a path forward with the health department. So depending on what happens there, we'll either be back or we won't be.
Okay,
Okay?
gotcha. Thank you.
I'd just like to.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've been persistent on this, but I feel I'm doing what's right for my family and my community. The area is more or less, affordable, and for people that, work in the community and everything. And one of them is my family. Actually, I have 4 boys, and we bought that property with both 18 and 20. It was under the, without doing all the due diligence and finding out. I was always under the impression that was 2 lots, and so was the family. And one of them was supposed to go to somebody that's working in the community. So anyway, regardless if it's my family or not, these lots are affordable for people that could build something nice and raise their family. Acre lot in this area is useless, and I'm you got to excuse me. I'm going by logic, and that doesn't work. Trying to market that, trying to get a family in there that's going to take the acre, I'm going to have to, it's just a loss for another family. That's the way I feel, and one of them is for my family. So,
Just a point of clarification, are you planning on building one of these 2 lots for your family?
Yeah.
For you to live in, or?
One of my sons. He works for the town.
Okay.
Right. And that's more or less why I've been pushing on it, and I just can't see it, going as an acre, because nobody's going to afford that. Nobody that wants to live in this area. Well, there would be somebody, but 2 people would be better, and that's why I'm fighting so hard to do this. It's costing me. And thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. Bruce, before I hand it over to you, I just wanted to clarify a few procedural things with Eric. Eric, if you can clue us in a little bit. I'll just take to heart your discussion about sort of, this is a conditional kind of process, right? If the health department is good, great. If we all sort of agree that we're going to suggest to ZBA that they should, rule in your favor on this thing, maybe that's another condition, kind of as you kind of work.
Obviously, we would appreciate that if you did that.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, we have the health department first, because unless we have a path forward there, there's no way to do this.
All right, so let me just ask Eric the question, which is, are we meant to be requesting lead agency tonight? Is that part of our objective?
You're not. The applicant and Rick stated this, that he'll submit it. They still need to submit a revised, complete EAF Part 1 after we have that established lead agency.
Gotcha. All right. Okay. So yeah, no, I appreciate the logical way in which you're approaching this, and I think it makes sense. And I think we need to give you kind of a sense of how we feel about it, what we may say to the CBA, in addition to anything else that we're considering about this. Bruce.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Rick. This is our 3rd time looking at this. I don't have much to add except, they have acquired the 2 sides of the abandoned road, so that obviously added to their square footage for both lots. When you take a bigger look at the area, the majority of the lots are around 1/4 of an acre. I don't know if this helps our argument, but when you're in the neighborhood, this is a big lot. And as you drive towards the east, there are very, very small lots, smaller than what potentially they could end up with now. 16, the scenic easement, I think is fine. It's going to require a little bit of revegetation. Lot 2 is going to be deficient by less than 1,500 square feet to reach its minimum of 20,000. So, in reading the narrative, which, thank you for the narrative, I kind of support this.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. Let's hear from everybody on it. Let's start on this side now. Ava.
I agree. I don't really have much to add, but I I think Rick's path, like you said, it's kind of hinging upon, we may not even be having a discussion, so I don't really know how much we really need to add in at this point,
Yeah.
because it may be moot. That's my only point.
I do think that one thing that the applicant would appreciate is how we feel about whether or not we're going to recommend this to the ZBA. I think that's important, right?
Didn't we already vote on this once previously?
We did.
And this is kind of a rehash.
Yeah.
Well, but it was a straw poll just to give some direction to the applicant, and now they're back giving it another shot with some new representation.
I will say for the board, though, there are some revisions that the applicant still needs to make to the plan, including, we need to straighten some things out as far as the area of slopes that need to be removed from areas where development is permitted. So, you may want to wait until you have, a pretty much complete map before you, have that conversation about specific comments to the ZBA.
Actually, I think that's a really good point, because I think defining the areas of the slopes are going to affect potentially the building envelope. At least on, what is that, lot 1 to the right?
Right.
Parcel 2, sorry.
It makes sense. Does that make sense in terms of your timeline and your process?
Yes, I don't even believe an application to the ZBA is pending yet. Again, brand new, but I don't think we have an application pending. So let's get to that point, and we have a final map. If we come back to you with a revised map and a ZBA application, then we'll ask you formally to make a recommendation.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll have more information to be able to do that, but Reed, we will do it again. We will have to do it again.
Yeah, okay.
I can see that Bruce has already kind of changed his mind on it based on the changes.
Yeah.
And the narrative changing. So we're not going to do that straw poll tonight, but any other comments for the applicant?
There is always the build a house, build an ADU unit on the property.
That was going to be my comment.
Okay.
No, go ahead. Please say it.
No, you can build a 600 square foot separate building. It has a full kitchen. It's not a garage. It's a small house as an option.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yep.
I also attended earlier today a talk on affordable housing in general throughout the town with the supervisor and David Lease as well. And I sympathize. Housing is so important out here, and we've said it here at this table many times. The demand is through the roof, and any little bit helps.
Yep. So Jen, comment. Go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
I think I agree with the comment about the ADU, and I also do think, given Mr. Whalen's, statement that they really do have to get health department approval, it is kind of a moot point, as Ava said. So I think maybe we should hold off. And I also think, to Bruce's point about the slopes, the building envelope could be, very much smaller if the sloping is substantial in more areas than is indicated on the map currently.
Okay, good, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought that up, though. I don't know if it's an alternative or it's not an alternative, but this is certainly something that the town is encouraging, is the ADU approach. It sounds, though, like you maybe wanted to build on one lot and sell the other, perhaps, but, in any case, know that there's perhaps another option. All right. So let's see where we are with the questions. The first is, does the planning board agree the proposed width of 16 feet for scenic easement is adequate?
Yes.
Yeah, Jen? Is it a yes? Okay.
That's a yes. Sorry, I was muted.
Everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Does the planning board agree revegetation plan should be submitted for the proposed scenic easement?
Yes.
Yes. All good on yes?
Yes.
Do we agree that an EAF Part 1 should be submitted? Yes. Does the board agree that proper title should be added to the map? Yes.
Yes.
Does the planning board agree The map should be revised to remove structures and former lot lines which no longer exist, clean up the map, yes.
Yes.
Does the planning board agree that building envelopes which avoid areas of slope greater than 20% should be added to the submitted map? Yeah, we talked about that, yeah. So, good. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you. Okay, the next matter up is the Bayberry Estates preliminary subdivision. Jen, that's you, and that is Eric for the planning department, and is the applicant here. Dan, that's you, okay. So Eric, please tell us about this.
Just showing you on the screen an aerial, a far aerial photograph of the property. Here's a closer one. This is just by way of background. This is an open space preliminary subdivision application to subdivide a roughly 17-acre parcel into 3 individual lots with a 70% reserved area. Basically, the planning department prepared an EAF parts 2 and 3 and attached it to the memorandum. A negative declaration pursuant to Secret in Chapter 128 of the Town Code is recommended. And provided the board makes a secret declaration, we will send this out to the Suffolk County Planning Commission as required. And we also have a resolution on for this evening to schedule a public hearing. If the board agrees. At the time of the last meeting, the board said that once a secret declaration is made, the application will be complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing. So,
okay. All right. Okay, so we, you part 2, the short environmental assessment form, the impact assessment does not note any, there are either none or small impacts may occur on the items that are part of that assessment. So I think everyone's probably had a chance to look at that. Jen, that is you to lead the discussion.
Is the applicant there? Is there any?
Yeah, we already asked that. Yeah, he's here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't, I didn't hear that. I think it is, I think we're ready to make a negative declaration and schedule for a public hearing.
Okay. Does everyone agree?
Yeah.
Yep.
That happens to be our first question and second question. Negative declaration and ready for public hearing.
Yes.
Yes. Listen, yes.
Yes and yes.
Good. Thank you. We can go right to that. Sure. Jen, do you have the?
I do. What?
Do you have the resolution, Jen? Do you want to?
Yes. Let me read it. Hang on. I lied. Do I have it? Yes, I do. Okay. In the matter of the planning board of the town of East Hampton and in the matter of Bayberry Estates preliminary subdivision, Suffolk County tax map number 300-155-1-25. I have read the resolution. All of the plans and paperwork is available on the town's website and in the town planning department. A public hearing is hereby scheduled to be held at Town Hall, 159 Pantago Road, East Hampton, New York, on November 5th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider the said application. The public hearing will be held live and in person by the planning board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV channel 22 and available for live stream on the LTV website, www.ltveh.org. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. I move to schedule the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Thank you, Jen. So you'll notice, by the way, board, that we have changed up the way we do these notices, right? That we've decided it's better for us to go into a bit more detail when we notice it and no real detail when we actually have the hearing. So we can just zip into it. We made that executive decision today, right, Brittany? With Brittany's concurrence.
So you mean when you schedule a public hearing, you have to go into more detail?
Well, we figure that it's practical, actually, too, when you're scheduling it to announce when it is, how you can,
Okay, sure.
how you can comment, what the number is to call in and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't really need to do that again when we actually have the hearing itself, right? So we're going to just
The reason for I have to do that this evening, so for the EV Montauk charger, so.
Oh, is that a schedule of public hearing? Yeah, okay. All right.
No, actually, that's for resolution of approval.
Yeah,
I misspoke. I was thinking of the.
Yeah, we'll trim the script down, so by the time we get back to you, you'll have the real words. Good, thank you very much. All right, moving on to the Brisas Padel Court site plan. Will and Ava is the applicant here for Padel. So, Will.
Okay, so this is an application seeking approval to construct 3 new Fidel courts, an Airstream camper to be used as storage, a storage container to be used as a snack bar, sauna, shade pavilion with 2 decks, 2 sheds, and turf in lieu of existing lawn on the subject property. A public hearing was held on September 24th, 2025, and no members of the public spoke at the hearing or submitted written letters to the file. The hearing was closed that same night on September 24th. Comments from the fire marshal dated July 1st, 2025 found the submitted information sufficient and no further review necessary. In conclusion, the planning department recommends this application is ready for approval.
Okay. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Get right to it. Is it ready for approval?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, great. Passed and carried, ready for approval. Good. Okay, another wrap up. Estee Restaurant Site Plan. Will, you again, and Ava, your team tonight. Will.
All right, so this one is an application seeking approval for a proposed 2-story restaurant, shed, decks, parking, and IA sanitary system on a site located on the southwest corner of Montauk Highway and South Emery Street in Montauk. A public hearing was held on September 24th, 2025. One public comment was received at the public hearing in which a neighbor expressed concerns over access to the alley south of the subject properties, proposed parking plans, and proposed curb cuts. No modifications to the alley are proposed as part of this project, and no path connecting the pool to the Sands Motel to the immediate south, which might interrupt access or traffic, is proposed. All proposed parking spaces will be located within the property lines and will not obstruct traffic within the alley or adjacent right-of-way areas on Montauk Highway or South Emery Street. The application proposes modifying the location of the existing curb cut, which serves 666 Montauk Highway, which will result in no increase or decrease in the number of curb cuts serving the site. The hearing was closed on September 24th. The board should discuss the public comment and determine if the public's concerns have been adequately addressed. Comments from the fire marshal were received on August 6th and found the submitted information sufficient and no further review necessary. This project received a negative declaration at the August 27th planning board meeting pursuant to SECRA, and no further SECRA action is required. The applicant submitted a revised sanitary plan with minor corrections from the previous plan, which appears to comply with all Suffolk County Department of Health Services criteria. Comments from the Suffolk County Planning Commission were received on September 3rd, which deemed the application a matter for local determination and offered general comments on the project. The board should review the comments and take them into consideration when discussing the application. In conclusion, the Planning Department recommends the application is ready for approval.
Okay, thanks, Will. So these are not really baked into our questions per se, but so there was, you'll recall that there was someone who made a comment about the curb cuts, as Will just explained. And the answer to the question is there are no additional curb cuts, right? So we just, I think, all agree that that is probably kind of an adequate answer to that question. Jen, do you agree that we're good with?
I agreed. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, good. And we know the conditions of approval on this are submission of a site plan containing approval from the County Department of Health, as usual, and submission of a final written approval from the ARB. So given that, is this application ready for approval?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Unanimous, 100% done.
Thank you.
And then we've got the Coombe sub-waiver. And that is Will once again, and Jen, you're back up. And the applicant is here, yes. Thank you.
Okay, this application is seeking subdivision waiver approval for a property located on Springs Fireplace Road in Springs. If granted approval, this project would create two 28,000 square foot lots, both having road frontage on Springs Fireplace. A public hearing was held on September 24th, and no members of the public spoke at that hearing, and no written letters have been submitted to the file to date. The hearing was closed on September 24th, 2025. Comments from the fire marshal dated May 12th have found the submitted information sufficient and no further review necessary. This project received a negative declaration at the August 27th Planning Board meeting pursuant to SECRA, and no further SECRA action is required at this time. In conclusion, the Planning Department recommends this application is ready for approval.
Okay, great. Jen, do you have any other comments on this?
Nope. Let's get this one approved.
Okay, there we go. Is this application ready for approval? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Carey, unanimous. Thank you very much. Eco Acres is our next final matter for the work session, and that is Eric and Jen once again.
All right.
Oh, the applicant.
Need the applicant? No.
Do we need the applicant for a wrap-up, planning department? I think not, right?
I don't think you do.
I don't think so.
Brittany says no. Brittany says no. Okay. Let's see if we do. I doubt that we will, but
I have tons of questions.
yeah.
Okay, as a reminder, this is an application to subdivide an approximately 6.7 acre lot into two individual lots, one of approximately 54,000 square feet, one of approximately 59,000 square feet, with two reserved areas. So a public hearing was held on September 24th. One member of the public spoke at the hearing. No written comments were received. The member of the public who spoke at the hearing was a neighbor of the subject parcel. Their concerns were primarily over potential visibility of the new residences on the subject parcels from the neighbor's property and vice versa. The neighbor cited an elevation change in the area which could exacerbate this problem and suggested that the board consider requiring increased setbacks. The planning department notes that the neighbor's residence is situated at roughly 52 feet above median sea level, whereas the building envelopes for both proposed lots are situated roughly 80 feet above sea level. The nearest edge, or about a 32-foot difference. The nearest edge of the building envelope on proposed lot 2 to the neighbor's residence is roughly 125 feet, and that is also roughly 275 feet for proposed lot 1. That being the distance between the envelope on that lot and that neighbor's residence. Although future residences on proposed lots 1 or 2 could be visible from the neighbor's property, the size of the lots will make building placement the primary determinant of this. The subdivision has been designed to meet the code required setbacks and further removed areas of steep slopes along this property line from the building envelope, increasing setbacks slightly. Any construction on either lot will need to comply with the pyramid law, which prevents a building from looming over a property line. As such, the planning department does not feel that a redesign of the subdivision by increasing setbacks or making other changes should be required. However, the board should discuss the public comments and whether or not any conditions will be imposed to address them. The planning department notes that the board has required rows of evergreen screening along property boundaries as a result of public comment in the past, and that a row of at least 6-foot-tall evergreen screening along the southern boundary of the building envelope on proposed lots 1 and/or 2 may be adequate to cut off line of sight between residences to the south and those on the subject property. One other comment here is that the applicants have indicated that they intend to put the reserved areas in ownership of a homeowners association, and there's notation on the map that reflects this. This is somewhat unusual for non-recreational reserved areas, but it is permitted under the town code. In the memorandum, the planning department quotes the code section of the subdivision chapter that permits the reserved area to be put in a homeowners association, as long as the purposes meet those that are listed in the code, which is basically passive open space. It's allowed to be in a homeowners association. However, if the applicant does that, there are a number of codified requirements that must be met. We put those in the memorandum. I won't go through all of them. They're, like I say, they're explained in the code. They'll be reflected in conditions of approval should the board choose to grant it. So other than that, the engineer has signed off on the project, so has the fire marshal, and therefore, in conclusion, if the board agrees, the application is ready for approval. We note 2 sort of unique conditions of approval. One is that no CO should be issued on either lot until they've been revegetated in accordance with the town code. I believe they're conforming. But that's a requirement that the board wanted from previous discussions. And then, as I mentioned previously, the documentation to memorialize and meet the restrictions of a homeowners association will be required to be submitted. But with those conditions and then the standard ones that you have for a subdivision, it appears that the application is ready for approval if the board agrees.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Jen, do you have any comments, particularly on the public comments?
Yeah. So I've been to that location, and it's pretty heavily wooded at this point, but I do feel if they are going to plan the driveway excuse me, on that side, then we should actually ask for not revegetation, but a screen of evergreens on that side just to continue to block it. I think that's a good idea. And I think it'll fit nicely with the neighborhood. And I have no objection to the homeowners association taking ownership of the reserve area. I think that's fine in this case.
Okay. All right, good, thanks. Any other comments, particularly on the issue of the public comment about screening?
It was screening specifically from the public?
It was the idea that, his house is at, I think it was, there's a 32 foot
yeah.
difference, right?
I recall the elevation difference being an issue.
Yeah.
And it is like 30 feet down. Yeah.
It's like the cliff. It really is. It's like, so I think, for both parties, it would be nice to have the screening there. Because otherwise they're going to be overlooking his house and he is going to be looking up. To be honest, I don't think he's going to see anything other than the hill, but screening can't hurt.
Yeah, we haven't seen plans for the development of these lots yet. We don't really know where houses are placed.
Exactly.
What the pyramid looks like, any of those kinds of things. And, I think we all know that nearer term screening does block the view as you look up, right?
Yeah.
Is there any zoning requirement or restriction? I mean,
for
the neighbor, the one who's going to be developing these lots, he has every right to build the houses as long as it conforms to zoning codes.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there that says you're going to obstruct the view of the next door neighbor.
There is not. As long as you conform to, pyramid laws and you've got it, you're meeting setbacks and you're within any established building envelope, you're good. You can do whatever you like. So, we're really dealing with a situation we don't know what it's actually going to look like in the end. It is up to the person that buys the lot and builds on it. I would support the idea of screening at the driveway, just as a measure to, help prevent encroachment of the view. I think it's fair enough, given that there's such a tremendous grade change.
Yeah.
How does anyone else feel about that?
I agree.
Support.
I support the evergreen screening.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
I think it's a nice idea. I think it's a good idea. I'm supportive of it. I'm just not sure that we have the authority to mandate.
We can't require it.
We can't, based on what? Based on what zoning code?
Well, it's our discretion to handle, these kinds of public comments. We have many times put screening along common driveways that run close to a property line, right?
No, don't get me wrong, I'm all for it. I'm all for making life better for the neighbors in this thing. I'm just wondering whether or not we have the authority to do so.
Right.
That's all.
Well, planning tell us the answer. I presume the answer is yes, we can. We've done it many times before.
I would say it falls under your authority and responsibility to provide adequate buffers and screening of adjacent residential properties under the subdivision chapter.
Under the what, Eric? You said
Subdivision chapter, sorry.
And regardless of not knowing the actual building plans for the prospective lots, the common driveway is planned. That will be what it is.
That's true.
So I would think that would fall under our purview. That would be, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, it
That's
sounds
not
like even if one of our board members wants a further explanation as to how we're able to do this, it sounds like we'd all like to, request it. Brittany, since the applicant isn't here to sort of say that they would like to conform to this, they agree to do it, can we make this a condition?
A condition of approval for this would be the subdivision. You're saying that on the basis that the driveway already exists.
Correct.
You're gonna link it to the driveway.
That was
Linking into the driveway, right? So we can make this determination without there any input from them?
They're not here to object to it. At this point, I would say if you want to have input from them before you decide, because something they say may change your mind, then I would maybe adjourn this to another meeting or table it to another meeting.
Well, wait a minute. There were notice that this was going to be coming up this evening. It's right in the memo. I mean, they unfortunately aren't here.
And also, as a matter of usual routine, we'd have to draft a resolution of approval that would have a specific condition in it, and then bring it to the board for a meeting. So you may be able to review it at that time.
Yeah.
As well.
All right, we're going to take the tough love approach here.
Yeah.
So I think we're all concurring that we want to add this as a condition to add screening at the driveway, the common driveway.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, good. I think we're done with that one, are we?
Yeah.
Does that mean, however,
There's one question.
so the public's concerns need to be addressed with the screening that we've just described, right?
Yeah.
So is the application ready for approval conditionally? Can we put it that way, Brittany? Conditionally ready for approval based on this based on the screening.
Discussed by the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Done. Great. All right. So into our regular meeting then. Let's see. We've got a couple of other pieces of business here to do. One is 267 Acabonic sub-waiver resolution of approval. These should all be really quick. That is Jen. That is you.
Yes. In the matter of the application of 267 Acabonic minor subdivision, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-147-6-31.2. What this says, waiver of subdivision approval, is that correct? Shouldn't it be
Hmm.
resolution of subdivision approval? The paperwork?
Right, the body of this also says that, by the way, waiver for application for waiver of subdivision approval.
It's a sub-waiver approval, but it's not a waiver of the subdivision. I think this is potentially correct.
I can
Right,
check the
Eric, is that
wording.
just miss?
It might be. Let me, I'm just trying to call it up so I can look at it.
Sure.
Might want to skip that one and go to other
Yeah,
ones.
let's move on and we'll come back to that. We'll give Reed something to do here.
Okay.
And that would be the EV chargers at 531 Montauk.
Okay, in the matter of the application of EV Chargers 531 Montauk Site Plan, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-172-2-33.1 for site plan approval. I have read the resolution and I move for its adoption.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Sounds unanimous to me. All right, cool. Lee Towers, we are not doing. Bayberry Estates, we did, right?
Yep.
So we're down to the St. Michael's basement alteration site plan, which is Jen again.
Yes. In the matter of the application of St. Michael's basement alteration site plan, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-172-2-9.4, schedule a public hearing. The plans and paperwork have been submitted and are on file at the planning board office and on the town website. A public hearing is hereby scheduled to be held at Town Hall, 159 Pantago Road, East Hampton, on November 5th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider the said application. The public hearing will be held live and in person by the planning board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, LTV channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, www.ltveh.org. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. And I have read the rest of this scheduling of a public hearing resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Pass and carried. So let's see, let's go back to 267 Accabonac. What do we have here, Eric? This is confusing.
So, yeah, so I mean, you're saying that at the top where it says waiver of subdivision approval?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's standard language. I was just looking and I saw we have some more recent examples of subwaivers where we said subwaiver approval or minor subdivision approval. But that is what a subwaiver is. That's in the name. It's a waiver of full subdivision approval. So I was just looking back through resolutions. We have them variously worded, but I think that accurately describes what the approval is, and I don't think it's problematic.
Okay. We trust the expert on this one. Yeah, I actually have never seen.
Yeah, because it does say application for a waiver of subdivision approval.
Yeah.
Are we?
We're good. I guess we're good on that, Jen. Let's just go with it. So go for it.
All right. In the matter of the application of 267 Accabonac, minor subdivision, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-147-6-31.2, waiver of subdivision approval. I have read the resolution and I move for its approval.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Passed and carried unanimously. All right, we're good. We're done with all that. The final thing is looking at the minutes, which I'm sure you all scoured very carefully.
I did have one question. It's not a correction, but it's just a question on the work session at the Montauk Airport redevelopment. There was a bullet point in there about applicants should submit full copies of airport operations details. I assume that would entail traffic and takeoffs and landings and that sort of thing?
Well, I think an operation is a takeoff and a landing.
Okay,
So that's
good.
what I think
All right.
it's specifically
Be up and down.
All right, good.
Yeah, that's the way that we talked about it at the meeting.
Yeah, all right.
That's what it was. That's what we were asking for. So, all right. So with that question cleared up, someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried. We're good to go. Thanks, everybody. One more. I meant one more.
I make the motion to adjourn.
All right, you got
Voice
it.
from above.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.